Hi, welcome to the second part of the Prusa Box build. These are really designed as instructional videos just to show you how the enclosure goes together, and hopefully you'll understand the complexities or how easy it is to put together. So to start with, the stainless steel is covered in a coating, so I'm going to take that off. And then some of the printed parts, all of these are on the Printerbox website. I'm going to fit these corners and feet, and then shortly afterwards these parts will fit into the lid. So we'll start from there, one at a time. The film is off the enclosure. In fact, it was really easy to remove. I've not shown that process, but once you can get a corner, it does pull off really well, so that was very nice to see. So I've got two bags here, one with M4 bolts, the other with M4 nuts. There are, I think, 5 bags of nuts and bolts, but these are the M4 size, and we're going to see what happens here. So let's start off. I believe that must go in there like that. So we can pop the nut in. If it goes in a little bit strangely, pop your Allen key through and you should be able to move the nut around until it goes in like that. And we have the bolt going through, an Allen key. You do need to provide your own Allen keys. An Allen key isn't provided, but I think anyone doing 3D printing should have a good supply of tools. And next we've got a actual foot to put on. That takes 2 more bolts, 1, 2, 2 more nuts, 1, 2. So let's pop this up, and I hope that can be seen. And we now have the foot. You can see the indentation there, and you've got the part that's proud there, so those will go on together and fit. I've got 2 nuts to put at the back, and again, if those don't quite fit, just pop your Allen key through to line the nut up. And I've got 1 more to do at the back. That's gone in, nice easy tip there. Okay, so let's put the foot around the correct orientation first. Right, let's try with this. So I'm going to repeat the same on the remaining 3 corners, and then we will have the base of the enclosure that will be off the ground. The next step is the top. So we've done the base, got the feet on the base, we're going to do the top. I've just taken off the protective coating, so we've got the lovely stainless showing. And there are two types of brackets to go on. Towards the rear, we've got more of a square bracket, and towards the front we have a very angled bracket. Now there is a bit of a knack, I believe, to get this on. So let's move a few things out of the way. Hopefully you can see this. So this particular one, make sure I've got it the right way around, which I believe I have. Yep, the smooth side. The narrow side goes towards the top there. Pop that in, have this edge flat before the ridge here, and you should be able to snap it in, and it snaps in just like that. Now, I believe there's about 4 screws and nuts per bracket, so I'm just going to pop in a couple of bolts. Next, I'm just going to swap this around just to show the rear part. You can see square edge there, square corner which is protruding. That's just going to go there. And here we have 2 holes here which will have, actually we only have one there. Let's double check I've got them the right way around. I don't think they can actually go in any other orientation. So yeah, oh, there we go. Yep, so two holes at the back, and we have 2 holes at the side. So each of those, so 4 bolts. So I'm going to put those in both corners, and I'll see you in a moment. Now, I've just noticed when adding the additional nuts for the holes on this side, you've got 2. There is a hole for the nut there, but for the second hole, the hole is actually underneath. So you do need to place the nut inside and hopefully keep it in there so that you can do it up. I started to do up the bolts on this side, and obviously then realised I couldn't put the nut in, so make sure the nut goes in the bottom. There's also a hole here, I'm not quite sure what that's for yet. There's a hole on this side pointing that way, and it looks like it's ready for a 3mm square nut. So I'm going to put a square nut in there. I haven't found out exactly what it's for, perhaps it's for nothing, but I'm going to put the square nut in because I won't be able to access that side. The same goes actually for this hole here as well, so I'm going to put a square nut in there as well, because once this is bolted in I can't access those areas. So I'm probably going to clamp those in with pliers or a hard surface because they're quite tight. So if something does have to go in there later on, at least I've got the nut already in. Right, I'm going to carry on, get all the nuts and bolts in. So we now have the corners of the lid all bolted in, and the next step is going to be putting this strengthening bar in the middle. 4 of the M4 bolts, just going to pop those through one at a time, pop a nut on. Rely on these 2 bolts at either end. I was going to complete the lighting, but I've just realised it's probably worth adding a couple of extra things in first, such as the plate that goes over the logo. So I believe we probably need the tiny screws. Here's the logo plate, so that's in. Now, one thing I noticed, I need to attach the lighting to a couple of places. There's some holes here and here. Now, there are actual slots for the little square nuts, so I'm just going to pop the last one in. Let's see how it goes in. There we go. So 2 square nuts in each. We're then going to put these rails in. This is for the self-adhesive lighting LED strips, and we're going to have one here, one here, and one here. And looking at the instructions, it looks like the open part needs to be facing inwards, so it'll be attached there, and it will be attached where the bolt was that we took out earlier, and probably angled slightly like this, so it'll be facing inwards. So let's have a look at that. When you're printing the lighting set, it all comes complete. The little clips and this part that has to go where the bolt was, and then the light will fit there. In fact, I think it's probably around this way. Let's just have a look and check. Yes, I think the back is probably towards that. So to begin with, I'm just going to bolt these in. So take one of the 4mm nuts and a bolt, and let's try and get that in. Well, I have to admit partial defeat on the rails for the lighting. I should not have put these parts in straight away. It's much easier if you attach the rail first, because this doesn't, the bolt doesn't go into a nut, it goes into the plastic. So if I just pop it in there, and let's get the correct sized Allen key, which I believe is under there. There we go. As you can tell, this is not rehearsed. I've never built this particular enclosure before. at that angle. Going to tighten that up quite tight. Slot can be moved very slightly. There we go. Okay, so that was one of the 3mm long bolts. I've got another one here. Hopefully you can see it's going to go into the bottom end of the front hinge. Apologies if I'm going to obscure your view. So now I'm just going to put the nut into the mount there. Keep my finger on it if I can. Pop the 4mm bolt underneath. That should, I think that's engaged. Yeah. It's easier having it over the edge of the table as well. And that is in. So we now have two rails ready for lighting. Now we've just got a third one here. So the last two parts. Now I didn't show you earlier, the way they fit in is like a tongue and groove type effect. So have them around the correct way and they will just slot in, and then you can put a hopefully a screw through there. There we go, it's gone all the way through. That's not going to come undone. So the last part, there's no center point by the looks of things. A couple of observations. I've just had a quick look at some of the diagrams and it appears that this plate is not actually needed to be held in by nuts, but now, this bar, it is going to slightly foul on this bolt, so a slight design flaw there I would guess. But basically it will go in with two of the long 3mm bolts. Make sure I've got the right Allen key. We do have the bolt in there. So I'm just going to pop this into the hole there. Hopefully there will be some sort of redesign on this. I'm not a great fan of this because it's giving me a bulge. In the center there you can see we have the center bolt. The only other thing might be to have a much smaller bolt or a chopped down version so it just goes through the blue plastic to secure the nameplate, but then doesn't cause this bar to rise. Perhaps that might be a suitable solution. At the moment it just bows slightly and we do have a bolt through the center holding it, and that is quite rigid. I've got it angled probably about 30 degrees so the light will shine back in. Yeah, that's really nice. And I can of course angle these side rails in slightly as well, which I will do. Right, let's look at the next stage. The next step, now that we've got the lighting rails in, is to add some lighting. So I'm going to do it at this stage, even though it's classed as a mod, because it'll just be easier to pop in. And by the way, if you're thinking of adding the filament spool inside the enclosure, the lighting rails have to have a slight adjustment, an extra piece fitted in. But I'm probably going to do that as a retrofit later on. So where it's got these little positive and negative terminals there, I'm just going to take the silicone coating off, and then I'm going to solder the next item onto those. We've completed the chaining of the lights, and there's the long lead that I've added, just the length of lead. We'll deal with that later on. So I'm going to undo the self-adhesive that's on the back, and on the Printerbox website there are these clips that are printed with the rails, and those will just clip on around. Unfortunately, the self-adhesive can't be relied on, especially on PETG. It does quite often tend to peel off. Sometimes it's handy just to put a few dots of super glue along. That will quite often hold it on, but these clips should also be really useful. I am going to allow a little bit of slack on the corners as well, so where the corners are, I'm going to bunch up the cable a little bit for the future. I've printed off, but as standard, the 6 in the STL file. I've printed off double that number because I anticipate this peeling, so I'm going to put probably 4 clips on each section. The clips are on now. Just a word of warning, if you end up with the LED strips that have got thick silicone coating on them, as I have in this case, the clips are very, very tight to go on. Normally the strips do not have a silicone coating, in which case the clips are nice and easy to go on, but unfortunately the ones I seem to have got a thick silicone coating. Anyway, we're on to the next step. The next step is the uprights. Now we've got the way on the Prusa Box side it's labelled is front right, front left, rear right, and I've placed these are all the hinge parts. I've placed them exactly as they are in the diagram on the website. It's a case of using the pins, the hinge pins, popping them into the holes, and if you find that they don't quite fit, then you may need to drill out some of the pins. In my case, all of them have slotted in apart from the one that I want to actually do a demonstration on, but I'm pretty sure that one will go straight in. Yeah, just got a slight burr on this particular one, but they've all slotted in. If they don't quite fit, say, use a 3mm drill as per the instructions, and you can slot them in. Also, I've printed off the webcam brace there, which will go inside at the same time. So we're going to be doing that as well. So next step is using the small screws and popping the square nuts into the slots here and then bolting all of the hinges on. So I'm going to do that now. Our next step is going to be attaching each pillar, popping a 4mm nut at the back with a bolt through at the front and going all the way around so we've got the base done. And as long as you've got them the correct way up, you should be able to push them in. Once they're incorrect, they do snap in, so it takes a little bit of fettling. There we go, that one snapped in. Otherwise, you won't get into the indentation here. So I'm going to go all the way around and put all the posts in. For the next step, putting the top on, I notice in the instructions it's recommended to have 2 people. Unfortunately, I'm on my own, so I'm going to try and pop it on. There's no real information as to the best way, so I'm going to play it by ear and probably have to put the front in first, I suspect. Yeah, that looks as if it's going to be a lot of fun. Let's try and get that in, front and back. That's almost in. I think that back is in. I just don't want it falling. The front is almost in. There is a knack to doing it, I think. Let's push right in. With these things where they tend to they have to click in a bit. Pushed a little bit. There we go. Just manoeuvring it just very slightly so that the stainless steel does actually click in. You can hear it hopefully clicking there. So that piece is actually in. Okay, all 4 corners are in. I'm now going to put all of the 4mm nuts and bolts in, and we'll see how we go from there. So finally got to finish the main frame. Please note that when you're putting the hinges on, there's some little spurs and those should be facing towards the doors, not away from them. Some of them I put on incorrectly and I've just swapped them around. So that's it. If you like this video and you want to see the next stage, please like and subscribe. That's really important. If you subscribe, then you'll get notification that the next video is ready once I've finished the next stage. So that would be really gratefully received if you could do that. This has been an enjoyable build so far. It's looking really good. It's almost like building a Meccano set. But yeah, I'm really impressed with the fit so far. So I'll see you hopefully in the next episode.